Good morning, good evening, social media. We have a crowd tonight. You're popular, Jeff. Mental health. It's a topic that we hear about, especially in May, right? Because it's Mental Health Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're all a little crazy. So we're here tonight, and we got the expert, Eldrick Chen. Just joking. On mental.
Yes.
No. We got Jeff here, Jeff Miner, and Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
All right. I'm happy to do so. My name's Jeff Miner. I am the owner of the Triumph program or Triumph Performance Institute. Um, I'm basically a licensed therapist. I'll tell you a little bit about how I got to where I'm at. Is I was a wrestler from Iowa, played baseball, played some other sports, and I was pretty good. Um, and I happened to struggle with anxiety really bad. I would get
Mhm.
so nervous before like the wrestling matches or the night before that I would throw up, I would get sick, I would just start dreading why did I go out with this? And so I wrestled all the way through high school, all the way through college and I did pretty good, but I really continued to struggle with anxiety and it made wrestling no fun at all for me. It made I look back and it's like I had zero amounts of fun in college and high school, and I was good. I was really good. I should have been loving my life, but I didn't so much. So when I graduated, I said, I want to become the guy that I wish would have had to talk to. So I ended up going and becoming a therapist. And then I got a first gig. I worked at the Olympic Committee for a while. I worked for the Utah Jazz. I worked for professional athletes on
Wow.
getting out of your own head, getting rid of roadblocks, dealing with trauma. A lot of what I did was I worked with gymnasts that were going through the trauma and they were struggling with eating disorders or depression or anxieties and all that type of stuff. Then I moved to Kansas City and had a beautiful daughter. And now I own the Triumph Performance Institute, where we basically help people that are on a mission. Like if you're here and you want to be here, I don't care what that is, we help you to get that. We figure out what is this, and then how can we get you there by overcoming your own personal blocks and your mental challenges and your whatever it is, because most of our blocks are limiting beliefs that we've placed on us ourselves. A lot of them aren't even true. It's their fears. It's like, do you guys have a fear of heights? Anybody got a fear of heights? Have you ever fallen from a high place, Jeremy?
I try not to put myself in a high place in the first place.
Right, exactly. Most of our fears aren't even based in reality. It's just like, and so what I do is I help you address your fears. I help you to overcome those roadblocks and things that are getting in your way. And hopefully you'll be able to achieve because we all got that champion inside of us. We all got that we're good. We know we could be doing better. And it's like we help you find that better and deal with your mental health challenges along the way. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome, Jeff. We got some wrestlers in the house tonight. I know John Wilcutt. He's a wrestler, and I've known him for years, and competitive. And we have I think Nick is a wrestler. So we got a few
Wow.
wrestlers in the house tonight.
Go team!
Yeah. So let's talk a little about this year, right? We've been doing our series on reflecting. And as we reflect, no matter if it's politics, economy, personal life, a lot has changed during this pandemic. And for many of us, it has been challenging. It's like a curveball thrown at us. There wasn't enough time to truly plan strategically, or really, no one knows what's the future, right? Even our government doesn't really know. So it's been challenging to cope, right? At first, like in our last episode, I talk about it. You know, the first 6 months for me, it didn't affect me mentally. You know, so I am kind of an introvert. Even though I do a lot of these live shows, I'm an introvert. So I actually get my energy being alone. So, but like 6 months later, you start missing reality, you know, like real people, you know. You start doing over 100 Zoom calls and live shows, it starts a toll on you. So that's me. So love to hear from you, Jeremy Eldrick, in regards to how it has impacted your mental health.
I think for me, maybe I'd just like to ask Jeff to sort of, define mental health, because when Jeff, you were introducing yourself, you actually had a spectrum of terms, right? You said things like anxiety, you were throwing up, the mental affecting the physical, right? And then the mood part you were not enjoying. Maybe Jeff, you could just, give us your professional definition of what mental health consists of, because I don't think most of us, or at least myself, I don't quite, get it specifically in terms of technical terms.
Right.
But why don't you define it for us? Yeah.
That's such a great question that I really do have to think about. It's like, God, I do it every day, but what am I doing? I think it comes down to two things. Like if you're in pain, mentally, physically, whatever, you can either continue to live with that pain or you can do something about it. And so you can take Medicaid, like let's say you've got anxiety and it's causing you to worry and stress and get sick and it's making your life really no fun. And you can either take a medication, which may or may help and has side effects and those kinds of things, or you can get to the root of the anxiety. And when you get to the root of something, then it gives you something to address. Like right now, it's just a feeling inside Jeremy, like, wow, I'm feeling anxious. I've got this. It's just a feeling. But if we address that, we talk about it, we target, we figure out what's causing it, then it puts you in control. Like if you've got a fear, like let's say you've got a fear of making cold calls. It's like you hate to make cold calls and you hate to do that. And so you don't do it. You avoid doing it, avoid making those calls, or you can address the fear, the root cause. What is the root cause? It's like probably a fear of rejection, a fear of not being enough, a fear of being let down. And so it's like you can either address it and stop being afraid of it and continue, or you can avoid it and knuckle through it and get by. And that's kind of how mental health is. It's like, find an alcoholic. Is it affect, a lot of people drink, but is it affecting your work? Is it affecting your family life? Is it affecting your overall happiness? There's some questions that you can ask. Is this worthy of me getting help? Do I need to get help for this? If you're drinking and you're getting ready to lose your job, yeah, you need to get help. You're drinking and your wife is about ready to leave you, yeah, it's probably time to get some help. It's like mental health is basically individualized. Is it affecting your life and do you want to change that?
Right.
So looks like my wife hopped on. So she asked, what is the best way to get to the root of anxiety when you have general overall anxiety?
Right. Great question, Jennifer. I think there's a lot of ways, but
don't say get rid of Kevin.
You want to fix this issue, Jennifer? I know the quickest, easiest way. But I'm not sure that's why I'm on the show. So if you're struggling, like what is the best way to get to the root of it? And it's what it's going to be. It's going to be using active listening and digging and figuring out the real reasons, whether it started when you were a kid, your core belief of I'm not enough, your parents didn't give you enough, or that you have to prove yourself, or it could be PTSD from a situation. It could be something happened to you and it's caused your synapses to not be firing correctly and you're living in fight or flight all the time. So anxiety can have several different roots, and to find that root is the key, and to go there. Because once you go there, most people, like, let's just say you were abused as a child. It's like, do you really want to bring that up and talk about it? So you hold it down. You push it down, and it's like, act like it didn't happen, or you put it in denial. So you're holding it down there, and it's like being at the beach, and you're holding that beach ball down and just trying to smile on the top, like, hey, life is cool, but you're dealing with these feelings that you don't even really recognize that you're dealing with. It's like you ask yourself, if you were abused as a child, it made you feel less than, it made you feel not important, it made you feel all those things. You ask yourself, am I still feeling those things? And if you're still feeling like you're less than or not enough, then you need help. You need to go and dialogue with that, because that's something that could be fixed. But we avoid addressing those fears and those past traumas and those big challenges because they are scary. But if you don't do it, you're not going to get healthy. It's always going to be there. Jeremy, was that a long way around your question or what?
No. That's good.
All
That's
right.
good because it covers a huge spectrum. And I guess going back to Kevin's question, really, right? Mental health and all that. I do feel that I anticipate that the real problem for most people, me included, will really be, when this pandemic gets extended, which it is already, right? It's the second year, people are getting vaccinated. How do you deal with that anxiety on a prolonged basis? I think that is really what I will see as a challenge, because if it's like for 1 year, probably you just hunker down and go through it. And then you see that, vaccinations are going on and it looks like, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to be okay. Everything's going to be back to normal. And we know it's not, even though people are getting vaccinated. There's the new variant. It feels like it's going to go another year or another 2 years, and who knows? So how can people cope with that? And second year in, I think some people are already not getting there yet. The mental is not stable, and I think that's a concern for me, even for myself, right?
Yeah, Jeremy, that's real. And that fear, it does keep proving itself in a way. We thought this was going to be a 3-month virus, 6-month virus, year virus. Now we're going 2-year virus. Now it's like that fear of the unknown and stress and worrying that's one of the major causes of anxiety, is the unknown. And how do you think we deal with that, Jeremy? What's the best way to deal with that?
I don't know. Talking about it here, admitting it is the first thing. It's the first step, I guess. But you can't really deal with a pandemic. You can't resolve a pandemic. So what can you control is really up here. But sometimes it's hard over long periods of time, right? Given in the 6 months. Yeah.
Exactly. And so basically what you're saying is right. We need to talk about it. Doing what we're doing here is a great way to deal with it. But one of the other things overall that we struggle with is if you're focused on the future, like thinking about the future a lot, and what do you think you're going to be living with is anxiety, because it's unknown. So if you're worried about what if we're going to be here in a year or 2 years or 3 more years, or this isn't, it's like what you're missing out on is the current moment and the present and what you're doing to take care of you now and how you're handling and responding to these situations. Because if you are living in the future and the worries and what's gonna is, we don't know. You know,
Mhm.
we have no idea. But what we do have control over is what we're doing right now. And it's the same way with like living. If you're thinking about the past and oh, it was so great or this was horrible or all these things all the time, it's like, remember when we could go get ice cream and remember when we could go to the movies? Yeah, I was. It's like if you're dwelling on that, what you're doing is you're getting yourself depressed. It's like when we live in the past and think of those things, it's like we're living with depression usually. And if you're living in the future too far and too much, you're dealing with anxiety. So it's like
Wow.
what we want to do, what we're trying to get better at, Jeremy, all of us, every one of us, is let's bring it back to the here and the now. That's what I can control. That's where my flow is. That's where I feel my best. That's where athletes are when they get in the zone. It's like bringing it, everything you can back to the here and the now is going to help you from putting so much emphasis on the future. So
Wow,
just
that's
just a
awesome.
thought. No problem.
So literally your past would mess with your mental health. So it's thinking about the future. Everything just messes with your mental health.
Right. It's like
Oh my
PTSD,
gosh.
post-traumatic stress is basically, it's like, well, yeah, you had a trauma, so don't think about it. Or you know, they're saying, don't think about it. Don't do. It's like, yeah, it's a huge thing. And you got to give attention to it.
Well, I like what Darlene said here. She's asking, how does the anxiety we're experiencing due to COVID compare to what people felt going through World War One and World War Two?
Wow.
Who knows? I don't think
I didn't go through it.
I don't think that there are any World War One survivors today. I mean, like, I might be wrong. There could be a like
100-year-old
that few,
person, yeah.
But the way I think about it is we can take on a generic timeline based on the history books, right? Like after 4 years of World War One, you have a great deflationary environment in 1921. I think in the US, it's a tractor bubble burst. You know, those days where you still have farmlands, then there's the stock market that trades on companies that sells tractors, the bubble burst. So there's great deflation, and then there's economic instability, and then there's the ramp up to the Great Depression, 1929, and then FDR came in and then unpacked USD from gold, and that led to further instability, and then there's World War II, and then we rebuilt. So
And then on top of that, Eldrick, we also have polio
yeah,
around that time.
I think that was like 1925 or something.
Right.
It was
I
rampant.
believe so. It was all within, I think, World War One, World War Two, when polio happened and measles and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was crazy
Terrible
times
time.
back then, you know. So,
I think that I do hope that history doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. It does. There's a lot of hedge fund managers with deep research capabilities. They are already saying in social media and in open mainstream platforms that the investment realm that we are in today, it's very similar to the 1930s. And we know that 1930s is an era or a decade of immense volatility. And that led to, in a way, World War II, because you see players that are losing out in the economy, they start having imperialistic dreams and desires. Not a good place to be in. But I think, and I hope, with a huge dose of humility, knowledge, history, and mental health, we do not go there. I hope. That's my point. I think Darlene brought up a very interesting point.
oh, good stuff. So, Darlene, I don't know if any of us understand what they were experiencing back then, but those are great points because I think we're going through similar repeat of history. Maybe look a little, and hey, we might add in a couple wars. You know, there are already wars happening in the world. If you look at it from a global perspective with Israel and everything going on. So there's definitely a lot of unknown. But I love John's positivity here. He said, what I've seen is some people do that seems to help with their fears of the pandemic is enjoying additional free time. Some people are jogging more, spending more time with their kids, and taking up new hobbies. So that's cool.
You know, and I'm going to agree with that. And I've seen so many positives when my clients come in. There's been a lot more challenges also. You know, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of people are using more to escape, a lot of things like that. But what I've seen a lot of is, wow, I had more time with my kids. I've really worked on my relationship with my wife. I have, and so it's like, there were a lot of pluses and still are a lot of pluses that came out of this pandemic. It's so easy to focus on. There was a lot of negative too. You know, there was a lot of people hurt and their businesses were hurt. And so I totally, and you know, it's like this in general with people. When you really think about this, do you look at the glass half full or half empty?
Change the glass.
Yeah, right. You're right. Get a different glass. I want a smaller one. But it's basically in the great big picture. I've got athletes that are going to do so amazing because of the pandemic, because they took this time to train like nobody's business. Train their mental game, train their physical game. I got people that are walking out like, that's amazing. You know, I had 8 months to train to my peak. And so a lot of good and bad came out of this.
Yeah.
No, and I agree. I think it comes down to, you know, the name of our show, right? Perspective. I think it really depends on our outlook. And of course, you know, we're all in this show, and you know, we're in a first world, you know, type country. So we're actually very blessed, and there are people that aren't as fortunate. But it's hard to tell people to, hey, look at your perspective if you're in a different situation, you know. But I think what Jeff is saying is mental health a lot of times comes from within, you know. So one of my favorite movies is Slumdog Millionaire. Do you guys remember that show? That movie?
Think
A
so.
little bit
Yeah.
I saw it, but it was a while ago.
Yep. So with that kid, he was handed a bad hand. You know, he's in this horrible situation, and you know they interview him during that that game, right? They were hosting that game, and they asked him all these questions when he was a kid and different things, and he shares his story. And even though his situation was so horrible, he looked at it from such a different perspective, right? And he had this positive outlook in spite of whatever he was dealing with. And I think a lot of times, even right now, what we're facing, we get to choose what we want to believe, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times our mind is the strongest thing we have. You know, I definitely seen people, you know, some people might not agree with me, but I've seen very broke people who are very happy. And I've seen very successful and wealthy people who are very unhappy. You know, and I think sometimes the world, you know, we equate success to certain things because what the world feeds us, you know, and that causes us to have mental health issues because Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't a lot of mental health issue caused by financial circumstances and upbringing, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's quite possible that, especially, I mean, it is all over the gamut where mental health is, but anywhere, if you have resources to deal with things at an earlier age, it's a game changer.
That's good. So I wanted to ask Eldrick and Jeremy, since you both are in the East, just from observation from my mother's generation. So she's probably in her late 60s. It seemed like Asians they kind of brush off mental health in that generation. I don't hear as much about counseling or therapists or like if I told my mom I have anxiety or whatever, she's like, oh, just fight through. You have a weak mind. Deal with it.
You have a good mom.
Yeah. So and then there's why are you so weak? So or anything, right? If you get hurt, dude, someone else got hurt worse. Your arm's still attached, so don't
I'll give
worry
you
about
something
it.
to cry about.
So I want to ask you guys. So is that still you feel in the East? Is mental health going to see a therapist or a psychologist kind of shy upon? Where like, hey, toughen up, or is that more acceptable nowadays? What does that look like? Are Asians in Asia? How do they look at this whole mental health thing? Because in America right now, that's the talk of, especially Generation Z, right? Everyone's talking about mental health. You see a lot of advertisements, big brands utilizing mental health for marketing purposes. So, love to hear your perspective.
I'll start first. Personal opinion, doesn't represent all Asians. I think you're right in the sense that like my parents' generation, even my parents' generation, my grandparents, right? This mental health topic probably never popped up. It's never been invented in that era at that time because my dad's like third of 10 children. Right. So he has siblings to take care of. It's a day-to-day issue. I guess in that sense, in Jeff's definition, they didn't have the luxury to worry about the past or the future because they were living in the moment. They had to resolve real practical issues, right? Where's food coming to the table, right? Take care of sibling 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Looking after each other, right? And it's really a livelihood issue. So I don't think that ever came into their minds because every day is just a challenge. That's my opinion. And I think when it comes to my generation, our generation, like you said, because when Kevin, you mentioned your mom, the first word I thought in my mind was like, yeah, you're weak, that kind of thing. It's the same perception. I mean, for me and people in my generation to talk about it really seems it is something that is not even just you don't want to talk about it. It's something just frowned upon. It just shows that you're incapable of handling stress or whatever. You're less than a proper person if you admit that you have these kind of health challenges, mental health challenges. My personal opinion. And I think you look at one generation after, it sort of becomes an issue. It's like something you talk about like you had a flu, or it become more common. I guess that's how I would interpret, let's say like the 3 generations. One is non-existent. For us, it's like coming up, but frowned upon. And the generation after, it's really just like discussed as usual. And I think, especially my generation, if you have that kind of a record somewhere, I guess, it doesn't bode well for your employment, I guess. So people try to suppress it even further because there's this social stigma attached to it. And so that's my point of view. Audrey, you like to add on to that, or you have a differing view?
I don't have anything different to begin with. I do think that where we are in this part of the world, talking about, I'll take a couple of steps back. I think it's easier for people to talk about mental health issues, assuming that it's not that severe. They are willing to open up a lot more than issues that are tied to men's health, women's health, or anything to do with stage X of whatever cancer. So I think that relative to those extreme circumstances, people are pretty open about it. That said, it doesn't always hit on the point of mental health. It circumvents that topic, but you know that the core is it. It's like having a higher level of stress from work, because nowadays you get more notifications from your colleagues, your bosses, and things like that. And that's really something that's new, because I guess we are very used to people tapping our shoulders, or we can choose to attend a meeting or escape a meeting or go for coffee and things like that. But now you can't really escape from your phone, isn't it? So I think that's one. And then with regards to generations, I think every generation is different. Even every individual in the same generation is very different. My own experience with my parents' generation, my aunt, my mom, and my dad are three different types of people growing up in the same generation that is known to be tough. I mean, that they grew up in the independence era. Singapore sought independence since 1959. We got it in 1965, and then we started building our country and economy since then. My parents grew up in that generation. So my aunt, she doesn't have time to cope with mental health issues. She is a go-getter, and she will do it. She lives like now and today, and she believes that her future is today. My mom, she tends to seek community support. In a way, her form of escape from stress is to talk. And I see that all the time. Back in those days where there's telephone, fixed line, she'll be on the phone all day. And I never understood why. But anyway, that's enough. My dad is happy-go-lucky. So he goes to work, and he doesn't, so he works shift. He does shift work. He doesn't come home after his shift. He will stay and mingle with his colleagues, having a cup of coffee, relax, talk about things before he comes home. And I would just like to say this. I think when it comes to mental health issues, it is very unfair to ring fence it to a generation, to say that, our parents' generation are much tougher, our current generation has weakened, and Gen Z is like rotten strawberries and things like that. I don't think so. I don't. There are a few that I know who's really pushing it on a day-to-day basis. Now, on one thing, I do think that people who are mentally resilient and strong, they focus on what's ahead of them. So, and that ties in with what Jeff does. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you are doing really is on mental performance. Because if you're talking about athletes, pre-game anxiety and things like that, it has nothing to do with being lazy, skipping training, and things like that. I don't think so. Because if you're on the line, if you're in the restroom waiting for your time,
Right.
you have done your homework. It's like
Exactly.
students who are prepared for an examination, but 30 minutes before entering the examination room, they have that anxiety, right? But the thing, I have that too. So the thing to think about it, and the way I cope with it, is to rewrite my mental script to change anxiety to excitement. I'm not anxious. I'm excited. I'm ready.
Right.
I'm ready. I'm ready to crash the game. Forget about whatever that is. I'm ready.
Right.
And I'm ready to give the top runners a run for their money if it's an examination. I'm ready to give the opposing team a run for their money. Or I'm ready to give my fellow running competitors a run for their money, because I know I'm ready. And I'm ready to destroy you.
Right on. Right 100% on.
thank you.
Doing it and saying it, training somebody to believe that is a lot harder than just saying, hey, use this anxiety as a tool. It's like you got to really believe it and you got to feel it like you just said. And that takes some work because it's like if you can get somebody to use their anxiety as a good thing and see it as excitement, see it as motivation, see it as anticipation for a great performance and use it in positive ways, then it doesn't drain you, it doesn't suck the energy, it doesn't pull you down. So you're right on. You're 100% right on.
No, that's good. So I have a question for you, Jeff. So okay, so you said mental health has to do with, okay, if it hurts you, your family, your personal life, job, different things. But there are people who are chronically mentally ill, right? They
Right.
struggle with things. How can they identify? How can you help someone if you know someone that's struggling? Because a lot of people who have mental health issues, they might not even notice it themselves. They aren't aware, right? So if
Right.
you have a family member or someone you know, friends or family, and for our audience out there, if they identify someone with a mental health issue, but
Right.
then they're maybe stubborn or don't want to admit to it, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, the first part you're going to have to do is identify and help them to identify and maybe talk about it in a non-threatening way. And just say, hey, have you ever talked to anybody that struggles with this? Have you noticed you do this? What do you think about it? And it's got to be in a non-threatening, asking them for clarity type questions. And Kevin, when anybody comes to see me or talk to me or do all that, the relationship has to be built enough and they have to trust me enough to be able to shoot them straight so that they're going to hear it and listen. So it's like kind of you've got to know where you are with that individual on what stage in the conversation you need to have. Like if it's your child and you see they're struggling with like a mental illness, it's like, what do you think you should do, Kevin?
Talk to
Wow.
them, right?
Yeah. And that's what it all comes down to with just about any situation. It's like if we're listening, if we're truly digging for their happiness and what's going on in them, you're truly listening to their challenges, you're going to know if they have more anxiety than a kid should at that age. You're going to know if they're really depressed. But the one thing that most parents don't do is have those conversations. It's like, a kid gets on average 10 minutes of conversation per week from a parent, meaningful conversation. So it's like, that's got to change. It's like you got to listen to your kids instead of telling them or fixing them, you're broke, you got to do this, you got to do this, you need to do this. No, 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 no. It's going to take, hey, what's going on, bud? Wow, that sounds really hard. Sounds like that's scary. Tell me about that.
I think that's human nature too, Jeff. You pointed out something that's, I think a lot of us do, right? I say this in the business world too. We're all fixers.
Yeah.
We love to be coaches, consultants, therapists in our own world, right? So
Right.
you'll notice that in your social media feed. As soon as you ask a question about anything, if you want engagement, you just play dumb and ask a question like you're just a dummy. And all of a sudden,
Right.
here's how you do it. This is what you do. This is, schedule this, do this.
Right.
And I think it's natural human nature. Like if my son come to me, it's like, okay, Dad Mo, let's fix it.
Right.
But you pointed out something as first learning to listen, right?
Well, there's reasons for that, Kevin. It's like, for one, if we just fix it, then they don't get the experience of learning to fail. And And so, like, if we're fixing all their problems and they're not learning the experiences that we're supposed to be there to be with them and to support them and to help them through. So it's like the fixer part of it. We think kids need to be told what to do. They need to know our morals and values. They need to know all these things. I'm going to tell you they do. They do know these things. You just have to help them find them.
Good.
Too many parents are tellers, too many are fixers, too many, and this is people in general. You know, in certain jobs, you're supposed to be a fixer. That's your role. And taking that on is good because that's what you're supposed to do. But in general, with your friends, they don't want to be told what to do. They want to be heard. Your partner, she doesn't want you to sit there. She comes to you with a problem. Then you need to go fix this and you need to talk to them and you need to go do this. It's just saying, yeah, you're too dumb to figure this out. I'm smarter. I'm going to tell you. and it never works. You know, as a therapist, I feel so bad, Kevin, for the first 5,000 people that I did therapy with. It's like my role is they come in, they tell me their story. I tell them what to do about it. They go home, they change, everything's good. Boy, was I wrong.
That's very honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening, truly listening. And that's the value of a therapist. It's the value of a marketer. Kevin, you wouldn't be able to help me to the level that you helped me if you didn't listen to every struggle, every desire, every hope I have, my missions, all these things. To be really good at our jobs, we have to really listen. But for some reason, that doesn't apply to parents with their kids. No, we just got to tell them. We got to tell everybody them what to do, and that doesn't work.
That's so good. And I agree, you know, and I think especially I definitely experienced this with Asian parents, my Asian parents. I can't speak for everyone's Asian parents. They're definitely fixers, you know. So
Mine too.
there's not much listening. So sometimes before you even tell your story, you're already getting the spanking.
You're getting
So it's like,
Exactly right.
I just came from school. I'm just telling you, I got beat up, and now I'm getting beat again.
to toughen your hide, strengthen your body.
Yeah.
You know. But hey, it's like Jeff said, right? It makes you fall forward, makes you tougher, I guess.
No, we're building mental toughness.
So with the pandemic, Jeff, right? A lot of us are stuck at home, family, not as much to do out there.
Wow, that's stressful.
Yep. That's great, Eldrick.
Oh, that's stressful.
So what are some coping that people can do while they're home to we have for introverts it's great,
Right?
but what about the extroverts?
No,
Right.
that's not true. Because
That's not
now
true?
you're cramped into the same four walls with your family that can be non-introverts too.
That's
And
true.
you have no private space, huh?
That's
Right.
true. Ooh.
Yeah. So it's terrible.
You know what this is the opportunity for us to grow in certain areas. And it's like, if let's just say we're not victims. Okay, this is the way it's going to be. I'm going to take me out of victim role. What am I going to do? And it's like, what do I want to do? It's like, I have so many athletes that have started the inner journey. They started meditating and learning to control their heart rate and learning to focus for longer periods of time and set up different obstacle courses that they can do around their yard or different places. It's like you can either look at it like, poor me, and I'm going to watch some more TV, or I'm going to grow from this experience. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to, if I would think that the best thing that could happen is if people would start learning to be mindful and live in the moment. That's where we were talking earlier. It's like that's where joy is, that's where happy is. But we're so busy worrying about the future, especially with COVID and all these different things. It's like we're giving all of our energy to that. And it's like, whoa, all of our energy should be going to this. This is good stuff right now. It's like I should be learning to meditate and be mindful and be in the moment. I should be learning other languages. I want to be able to, there's lots of different things that you can do, but we tend to fall in the pity party, Kevin. And it's like, for me, I'm stuck. I can't get out. I can't do this. And we can live there, or you can change it.
That's good. And it's so true. I think a lot of us, it's like I said earlier, our mental health is sometimes a choice, right? It's a matter of perspective and what we choose to believe. And a lot of it has to do with our upbringing, the way we're raised, the way we see things, right? And we have to look at the now. And it's funny because I think our last two episodes, all the guests that's been on the show during the reflection series have mentioned to live in the present. I think Annie mentioned that as well. Correct? Yeah. So what does living in the present look like?
I love that. You know what? And I've got a little exercise that I get my people started with during our sessions. And it's like, and you can have the audience out there do it. We can test drive it. It's I have them really look around the room. And when they have other thoughts that come into their head, let it go and go back to really looking around the room. And we usually do 2 minutes of that. And then I have them do 2 minutes of close your eyes and I just want you to listen to all the sounds. Any different sounds, I want you to distinguish. Think about if your mind starts wandering too, I got to go do work, I got to go do this. That's all right. Just let it go and bring it back to listening to all the sounds. And then the last one I do is I give them a little rock. It's a diamond geode thing that I found. And they have to close their eyes and they have to feel it for 2 minutes.
So with Eldrick, if you've seen our last episode, it would have to be gold or silver.
Platinum or palladium.
Well, for any of the viewers who have listened to what I mentioned last week and have a little something there with them now, they're going to thank me soon. No, but that's a very interesting segue. I think what Jeff recommended is a very good way to, how should I say this? Like direct. It is a way to direct our attention, focus, and energy into the present. Because the ability to focus, in my opinion, is actually a muscle that we have to exercise. It's a mental muscle. It's a mental muscle. So if we want to be in the present, don't focus so much on, for me, don't focus so much on what we are thinking first, focus on this first. When we are using our hands to do something or to build something, take for instance, something that's very silly like Lego or nano blocks and things like that. If you're building something, your eyes, your mind, and your hands, they are acting in unison.
Right.
You are in the present. As simple and as silly as that, you are in the present. Even when you are blogging, when you're writing, you are in the present because as you type, you are redirecting your thoughts and you're converting it into coherent pieces of messages, and you are giving birth to something visible from invisible. Sorry.
Right.
So I think that's the way to think about it. I just look at my hands like, why am I like entertaining depressing, negative, or historical events in my mind? I'm not doing anything now, so I'm gonna do something.
Right.
That's how I think about it, and
Yeah.
I do think that the pendulum has swung to the other side of the oscillation way too far. Like, oh, you're too busy. Stop what you're doing. No, man, you're not busy enough, because you are dwelling on the historical performance. You're not busy enough. One of the ways my aunt used to teach me about life is she would ask me, how many things have you failed today? It's a very tough one. I didn't get it when I was in my early teens. I didn't get it at all. Like, she would
Right.
ask me, how many things did you fail today? Then I was like 1, 2. Okay, you're not living life enough.
Right.
So
I love her
get-
already.
Get out of my house now and go do something, and don't come home
Right.
before midnight. So her lessons are a total opposite of what most of the total opposite of my mom or my dad's lesson. My dad is like, no, wrong. My mom is like, it's 9. Where are you? You should be home. My mom, my aunt is like, it's not even midnight. Why are you home?
Right.
Buzz off. Yeah, buzz off.
I'm like
Go do
Aunt.
something. Yeah, and tomorrow morning, show me what have you done for the entire day yesterday. How many things have you failed? If all of those things that you have done, 80% you have excelled, you're not living.
Right.
Yeah, go out and do something new.
How
So-
old is Grant, and is she single? I think I need to meet her.
No, she passed away. She passed
Oh,
away
all right.
a decade ago. She passed on when she was 51.
Oh man.
She passed on.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No worries. But
That was-
so that was a distraction. But I think if you want to come into the present to focus, just look at this. I think it's one of the easiest way I can think about it. Do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. my point.
Exactly right. I think you're right on. It's and in America, I know for a fact we tend to not ever do that. We live in the future and in the past a lot, and it's go, 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 gotta be here, gotta do this. It's like, look at something solid, ground yourself, use an anchor. It's like, that makes total sense.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a firm believer in it, and I wish our country did it as much as others.
Oh,
That's good. But this also leads to a good segment, and I want to ask you this, Jeff. So, during this pandemic, you'll hear from a lot of professionals, because this show is primarily on LinkedIn. Burnout. And burnout is real, because right now, people are working longer hours because they're virtual. So there's
Yeah.
really no stopping point, So, and then you hear, the hustle mentality, the working, you have to work in order to be successful. So is burnout real? And how, you hear a lot of experts talk about balancing, but then there's people on the other spectrum, it's like disregard balancing. So
Right.
let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
I know burnout is real, is there.
Burnout
How
is
can a professional, what does that look like? How do they balance that? Love to hear, your thoughts. How
Well-
do you know when it becomes a problem, when you're a workaholic, or it's an issue?
Well, and those are different segments.
Yep.
When you become a workaholic, that's one thing. Burnout is one of those where I will tell you, most people that burn out are perfectionists. And they put a lot of stress on themselves to be perfect. And year after year after year of trying, thinking you should be perfect and you're never going to be, then you're going to get burnt out from even trying. Perfectionism is a curse or a blessing. It's like, if you can be a perfectionist and strive for perfection, and make that your goal and you always want it, but you don't, you're still your biggest fan. If you don't do it, then perfectionism can be great. But if you are your biggest critic and you're a perfectionist and you beat yourself up and beat yourself up and beat yourself up because you're not going to be perfect, you're never going to be perfect. That person doesn't have a shot.
Mm,
And that's burnout. That's like, I can't keep going. This is overwhelming. I keep losing. It's like when we have a fear of losing, when we're stressed out and worried, and then we're not going to feel good about us. And there's lots of different ways to like address burnout. I mean, burnout doesn't have to mean you have to leave your job or it's over or any of that. It means you need to change your routine. You need to start doing things that you're passionate about, you can engage in, you feel good about. And when we do have burnout, a lot of times we do become workaholics. We're working all the time and we're doing it to please other people. And whenever you're trying to please other people, that's a losing endeavor because you're never going to please everybody else. It doesn't work like that. So you got to learn to please yourself, to take care of you, to set boundaries, do the things for you that are important rather than, oh, my boss, if he sees me working an extra 2 hours or I can get these things done, they'll be so impressed. And it's like when we're trying to do everything for everybody else, it's real easy to burn out.
I have a question for you, Jeff. We have this almost mechanical association between burnout and perfectionist.
Mhm.
I want to explore if there's any possibility that procrastinators and burnout can be associated. Do they experience any form of burnouts too, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's like the same thing. If you were truly passionate about something and you were really excited to get up and get it done, would you procrastinate it?
nope.
Right. So it's like when we procrastinate, it's like typically what I find, it's a fear of success.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah,
Fear of success.
Yeah, it's like with the fear of success, you set the bar down here. It's like kids that could do well in school, but they just don't take test right or they don't turn in their homework or all that. So they set the bar down here. So, hey, mom and dad, I got a C. All right, little Billy got a C. Yes. And so, but if they set the bar up here when they're really capable of doing up here work and they don't want to think they can maintain it. So that is the fear of success. That's why a lot of people procrastinate. That's why they do what's called ABT, all but thesis. They go to graduate school, they finish everything, but they don't finish their doctoral thesis because it's like the ending or, well, basically, it's ABT, all but thesis. You don't finish things because you're sabotaging your success. And we do that frequently. As a society, we sabotage our success. And not necessarily related to burnout, but have any of you sabotaged your success, do you think?
More often than not,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, we definitely. Yep.
I
Yeah.
can't relate to that. I'm sorry, I can't relate to that. I don't get
Good.
that concept. I don't get the concept of sabotaging your own success.
It's
How do
like-
you do that?
It's like if you can finish a plate of rice, you only eat
Yeah.
70% because you're afraid that if you hit 100%,
Yeah.
for some reason, you become very, very worried that, oh, I can actually do this. And that means I can do something more for myself. And I probably don't want to do that because it takes up too much commitment. I just want to be comfortable with myself. I think that's what Jeff is trying to say.
Yeah, it's a lot of the part you just said at the end is being great at something takes a lot of work. And if you put yourself out there and be great, then in your mind you go, well, then people are going to expect me to always be that great.
Yeah.
And so your fear of letting them down, of embarrassing yourself, of not looking good, it's like, well, if I just lower it here, lower that bar a little bit, then I don't have to worry about looking stupid because I can pull this off anytime. So
Right.
then if we put it up here and we're really trying our best and we could pull it off, so we sabotage. We do things
Right.
to ourselves so that that doesn't happen, so that pressure isn't there, so we don't look stupid, we don't embarrass ourselves. Our friends all think, well, you know, he's doing a pretty good job.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I can't relate because if it is something that I want to do or passionate about, I'll do as best as I can. The next time I do it, I'll think how to better myself.
Right. Not everybody
I-
thinks of
yeah.
that.
I do that when I organize my annual like kickoff meetings. Oh, we did this team building last year, or we had this last year. How do I better myself this year? How do I improve based on last year? It's always trying to get myself one up every time. But that's only when I do the things that I'm passionate about. Okay, when I'm really passionate about, it's like not
Well,
everything is like that.
But that's the important part. And here is the thing is most of us are so afraid to fail. You know, because I just was talking about the fear of success. The fear of failure is that I'm not enough, that I don't have the goods to make it or be successful in that. And a lot of times that comes from worrying about what everybody else is going to think too.
That's the mental script part that Audric talked about earlier. Because
But
if I were to
that's-
relate to that,
Go
yeah,
ahead, John.
sorry, I just want to very quickly say, if
Yeah.
I were to relate to that, you know, before examinations, right, everyone will feel anxiety. You're not good enough. Fear of failure, right? So what I do to tell myself is, examinations were made to pass you. Because if examinations were made to fail you, so easy to fail you. Just set impossible questions, right? So
Right.
there's a stage whereby you fear to fail, and then you tell yourself you're gonna pass. But Audric is on a different league altogether. He's like, I'm gonna make everyone run for their money. I'm gonna be the one setting the bar. So they're like, it's just three different realms. So I'm in this realm. I'm nowhere near Audric in that.
Right.
that
I
frame.
get that. I totally get that.
I just want to say I just want to say one thing about the fear of failure.
Fear of failure.
I think that was what was mentioned, and you know, Jeff, you can give your opinion on that. I do hold that element of fear of failure in me very dearly, and I do embrace that side of it because I don't want to come to a point where I'm shortchanging myself. I would rather be exhausted by the end of the day. So there is this fear of failure in me that I am not doing my best. And even if I have, I still think that I have not. Because I think that the way I think about things is that in every professional field that we are in, or in everything that we are trying to do, there's always a hierarchy of sorts. So if everyone tries to be better at one thing, then naturally all of us are a rate from very good to not so good. It's natural. And if I choose to play that game, or if I choose to want to excel in that game, I have a very high element of fear for failure because I don't want to be at the other side of the spectrum. I want to be in front. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that I'm a pompous asshole who thinks that I'm good at what I do. I
Can
just
I
think
ask you a question with that?
Go ahead, Jeff. Please
And
do.
I love that. So, do you think a fear going out onto the field or whatever, and you have a fear of failing, you think that's going to help you perform better?
Well, I can write a thesis about this, but the thing about this is it keeps things in line in terms of effort and in terms of the future that I want.
But it loses the fun, because you lose the fun if you're basing this outcome. I have to be worried or I have to have fear to be able to achieve that outcome. When in reality, if your confidence was up and the fear was down, the fear wasn't affecting you. I know I got this. I can overcome this. And you're using, like, one thing I heard you say earlier, it's like you can use the anxiety in some ways. You can use the fear in some ways. But if you fail to use those in the right ways, then they're going to be hindrances. They're going to be roadblocks. They're going to be what get in your way. So the thing about how you use those correctly are you turn them into what you tried to say earlier. You turn them into excitement and emotion and anticipation for the play and those kinds of things. When we base our performance on fear, any kind of fear, like I'm going to let the coach down, I'm going to let all my fans down, I'm not going to make enough money, I'm going to do this. Whenever we base our performance on that, it's like pressure holding you down, and it's like, go ahead and play your best basketball. I want to see you try to jump when I've got all this weight holding you down. So it's like fear really doesn't do us much good in itself. If you use it to your advantage, it can be one of the best things.
And I guess I need to have a little bit of accuracy in what I just articulated. I do embrace that fear of failure on a daily basis because that ties in with the effort that I have to commit to get there. I don't think about the performance.
Right.
It's a way in which I kick my own ass. Like, do you? So I'll ask myself.
Why do you want to kick your own ass when you're with me out of your favorite person? It's like if you are playing tennis together and we're on the same team and I make a mistake, what are you going to say to me?
I'm not going to say anything. Is that
He's gonna kick your ass.
Is that a need to?
Probably going to say, you got it, we'll do that better next time or whatever. And if you were to make the same mistake, you'd be beating the shit out of you, saying, oh, you should have made that. You always made that. You're so stupid. And it's like, wait, do you like me more than you? Because I'm going to play better because you're encouraging me. You're going to play worse because you're kicking your ass.
If we are teammates,
Yeah.
let's focus on the game, right? When the game is over and we are having coffee, we can be friends. Let's be clear about what we are trying to do. I think that's important, right? I used to say this, but not from a teammate perspective. I used to say that I value my competitors a lot because we bring the best out of each other. Because if you're trying to beat your competitor and your competitor is trying to beat you, you actually live. It's a rising tide, because then you improve, right? Of course, during the game, I want to crush you. I want to be better. I want to crush you, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a heat stroke, then we stop the game, and of course, I have to do whatever I can to bring in the medical attention. So context to me is very important. But that said, on a normal day, please do not expect me to give anything to you. That's not the way to do things. I'm sorry to say that, but yeah.
In your mind.
I said it, so it's no longer in my mind.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's all there.
If you're going to be on another team, you better win.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
So you're
that's great.
gonna play tennis with Aldrich now, Jeff? Or you're
Oh,
gonna play
I'm
opposite
excited. I
him?
can't wait to play, Bob. I'm going to hit him over the fence and feel really good about it.
Maybe.
I love it.
No, but it's so true though. I think in life, I think when the fear, I think once you hit rock bottom and you've experienced that, right? Even my personal experience, I think once you've hit rock bottom and you've experienced that, and then you come back up, right? After failing, it truly changes your perspective because even myself, I have failing business that was, super successful in another city. And I hit rock bottom. I was one of those guys that, I was a young entrepreneur, started early, had my success, did really well and opened multiple businesses, lost everything, right? Right before I hit 30, I had this grand concept idea how, hey, I'm going to build all these different, businesses, prior to I hit 40, and right around 28, I ended up losing everything due to uncontrollable circumstances, father having cancer, failing in that, the downturn of the economy and everything. And I felt like I fell, right? So I was your typical athlete growing up, high achiever, goal oriented. I want to destroy you if I'm competing with you. And when that happened, I still remember that day, right? At the time I had a restaurant bar, and the night before I, decided to step away, I was in the kitchen. I felt like my life was just gone, right? My dad was about to pass away. He was like my best friend. Economy wasn't good. I wasn't happy. I had a lot of friends, but I would say a lot of friends that just liked me for my success versus 28-year-old life of the party, had everything, right? And it really allowed my mind to start really thinking. And I still remember clearly that day, the turning point in my life. Understanding what are the things that really matter. And it was that day I knew that, hey, not everyone's your friends. And it's okay if people don't accept you. Why does all that stuff matter? And when I was able to block that out, I mean, it was a struggle for me. I was in a smaller town. And with my type of business I was in, it was very highly publicated. People knew who I was. And it was embarrassing, and you go from being on a cover of a magazine in a small town, and small towns in America, everyone knows who you are. I grew up in that town, and being, hey, you might be, I was supposed to be like the, hey, the 10-year high school reunion, the guy that was probably the most successful, and right before that, everything went to craps, right?
Right.
And go back to, from an entrepreneur, I went to work for people again. I started over, and it wasn't a glamorous job. I went to work for my uncle's restaurant. And I told a story before where I just fried chicken, and I'm a college. I have a degree in software engineering.
Yeah.
Going back in the kitchen, working, owning a restaurant, and then working in one is two different things,
Right.
And so
Right.
it was embarrassing. And my uncle had a restaurant that was inside the campus I graduated from. So it makes it even more embarrassing. Now
Right.
you got your deans and your professor. What are you doing here, Kevin? So it wasn't like something you're like, it really, through that experience, I say it really put a damper, and it really affected me. I was like, man, this is super embarrassing. It was really hard. But then I learned to push all the naysayers away, and it really doesn't matter what other people think,
Right.
you
You
know,
see,
because at the end of the day is taking care of number one, which is me. And when I changed that perspective, that's when I met my wife. That's when I started striving to get back into my professional jobs. You know, and one opportunity led to another. And then I was back in the driver's seat, you know, when I started J29, you know, but it took, you know, 10 plus years of rebuilding and changing my mindset. I was depressed for a whole year. You know, I went through bankruptcy, hid myself at home, you know, didn't want to go out. And it was crazy, you know. And I was one of those guys, I would never think I would struggle with my mindset because I was always a very positive, very competitive person. And when that happened, it changed everything. But now I'm that more competitive because I really don't care what people think.
Right.
And it really changed the dynamic of my business.
two things.
Yeah.
Two
Yep.
things I learned about failure, because I'm sure everyone has hit rock bottom before. Two things I learned. Number one, right? Embarrassment.
Yeah.
Have you always wondered? Embarrassment is always, I'm embarrassed, it's within me. I'm embarrassed at myself. But you never hear people, I'm embarrassed for you. No, it's
Right.
never.
Yep.
It's always inward. You are thinking you are embarrassed, but others may not think so. Yeah, they might pity you, they might feel, oh, that's a terrible situation, but they will never be embarrassed for you. Unlikely. It's always how you see yourself. That's one thing. The other thing I learned about failure, hitting rock bottom, is this. It is liberating. It is.
That's so good.
Because when you hit rock bottom, like what you mentioned, Kevin, you lose all the shackles that I couldn't go back and fry chicken. No, I can't. I can't help out at this and that. It is liberating because you lose all your preconceived notions of what you should be doing at this high level, blah, blah, blah. I should be leading a team of 10 people. Suddenly you hit rock bottom. You need to change your mindset and say, okay, it is kind of liberating because now I can do all the things I want. I can really start from ground zero. Yeah, it's hard. I've been there myself more than one time.
But
But
you don't have to
it can
fail
be.
to do that. You can just walk away to do that.
Yeah, but you wouldn't really want to because of whatever, right? Your salary, blah, 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 your social status and all that stuff. But what I'm saying is that if you do hit rock bottom, you need to change that perspective. It's hard. It's very hard. Okay? It is very hard. But it is liberating. It gives you that strength to know that is the worst spot I've been. Now, from there, I'm just going to go up. It's rock bottom. The only way out now is up. If it's not going to go further down. Right? Unless, yeah. So that's the only 2 points I wanted to say.
Have you heard of
Yeah.
negative numbers? Beyond zero. It's infinite.
That means
I
you have
know,
not
I
hit
guess
rock bottom
the-
yet.
I guess the point is I do not attribute the bottom to external forces. I arrest my own bottom. Because I think if we think about like
That's
numbers
coming
on
from
a
a guy
scale-
that kicks his own bottom.
Oh, wow.
Right. You're constantly kicking your bottom.
The only one that can pick yourself up is yourself, right? I mean, like other people
Right.
can help you, but if you don't want to pick yourself up, you're not going to get up.
You're right.
That's just how I think about it.
Hey, I gotta tell you, I was working with an MMA fighter, and we were working for 5 years together. And he looked at me one day and he goes, Jeff, coach, I get it. And I'm like, what do you get? He said, I just got to give no shits what anybody else thinks. And I said, bingo.
After 5 years?
Oh yeah, 5 years. That's what he took. And it's
Wow.
the best thing because it's like when you don't give any shits about what they think, then you can be your best for you.
You got
It's-
focus.
You're not trying to be best for Kevin or anybody else or the coaches or anybody. It's like, oh, I just got to not care about them. What do I want? What's important to me? And that's tough for people to get to.
And I think there's this misconception too. If I take care of me, then I'm selfish. But now
Right.
I've learned if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others?
Right.
You know, and I think is a concept that a lot of people miss because we are so caught up. Okay, if you're an entrepreneur, I got to take care of my clients. What's the number one thing you see, and especially small to mid-sized businesses? Their marketing sucks. Their sales sucks. Their internal system sucks. The culture sucks because they're so busy taking care of clients. They don't take care of themselves. So internally is a disaster. And it's not, you see it in the business consulting world. Companies can't move forward because they're a mess inside, because in their mind is, let's take care of clients.
Right.
But the truth is, if you start listening to, CEOs that are, high level and they're winning at the game, they're all about, you take care internally. You take care of your house.
Right.
And allow your house to take care of your clients and do the rest, right? And I think it's so true in our personal life. I started seeing it in me too. I was so busy trying to accomplish things, achieve things. But I wasn't taking care of myself. I was worrying okay, when I was in the corporate world, what my boss think, how do I achieve that recognition? When I was an entrepreneur, I think about how do I get in that magazine, or how do I get recognized by the chamber, or this and that. And this go around, I really don't care. If I want to do a live show, I'm going to do a live show. If I want to do a conference, I'm going to do a conference. If you don't like me in Kansas City or anywhere else, that's fine too.
Right.
But guess what? I'm having fun.
Bingo.
And right now, like this show, even, right? Bottoms Up. People are like, what are you doing, Kevin? Do you get business from this? And I go, sometimes and sometimes no.
Most
but
times
and I enjoy the people I'm with. I enjoy Eldrick, I enjoy Jeremy, the relationships I've built, but I'm having fun doing it. For me, it's also a mental, relief. It's fun talking to all of you.
It is.
So I think when you truly stop caring, things start clicking.
That's very contradicting, right? Mental health.
Yep.
Oh, I'm the same way. You gotta give no shit. It's like, really? Help?
So Jeff, before we end tonight, tell them the Triumph slogan.
It is own your shit.
Yep.
Oh, I love that.
You gotta own your shit.
And so, in regards to mental health, why is it so important for someone to own their shit?
We can start with all of them: anxiety, depression, all those. They're usually based in, we're tucking feelings down. We're holding feelings in. We're worried about the future. We're worried about the past. We're worried about, and until you get real with yourself, until you say, I'm going to walk into my fears. I'm going to walk into my doubts and the things that I'm afraid of. And what walking into that means, it's just talking about it. Talking about it with someone that's going to hold you in that spot, not just, oh, wow, that really sucked. Okay, next. It's talking with somebody, wow, what was that like? Tell me more about that. Was that scary for you? Wow, that sounds hard. And so when you really go into those feelings, and that's what's called dealing with it. Because what's happened, like I said earlier, we talk. We hold our emotions down there, bad events, traumas, anything. And unless you're willing to own your shit and talk about what's real, it's always going to be there. You're always going to feel those feelings. So you got to walk into them. You got to own them with somebody.
Yep. So Jeff, tell everyone here, Jeff also has a live show that he does tomorrow night. Is usually around 7, right?
7:30 it starts.
7:30. And and he talks, he has always athletes, coaches, high achievers hop on his show. And what's the best way for our folks that are still on here to follow you? And
probably go to Triumph Program or Triumph Performance Institute on Facebook. And then we have a group, Mentally Strong Athletes. And that's where you can watch our old YouTube podcasts. And so basically, our Triumph page on Facebook would be a good one.
And Jeff does something very unique for our audience out there. And he does an excursion. So I know we're on LinkedIn and there's a lot of professionals, there's executives out there. If you really want some one-on-one attention where it's private, exclusive to you, you can hang out with Jeff. So Jeff, tell them a little about this excursion that you do.
Well, I'll give you the 9-yard version right now. Is during COVID, one of my clients kind of fell off the wagon. So we didn't have a place for him to go. We looked for facilities, they were full or they weren't programming. So he said, "Hey, Jeff, you take me up into the mountains for a couple weeks and work with me. I'll pay you what I was going to pay the treatment facility." So they pay way more than what I was getting. So I said, yes. And we went on a 2-week excursion where we talked about each area of his life and his values and his purpose and why he was drinking, why he relapsed. We set up an aftercare plan. We set up like a relapse prevention plan. We did all these things to help him when he went back into the world. So I did that, and it was like the most amazing experience I've ever had. It was so much fun, and he did amazing. He came back and he was really good, and he changed his whole life, basically. So I started doing those, and now I'm doing them with people basically that are on a mission to overcome an addiction, to write a book, to achieve something that they've always wanted to achieve that they never have. We go somewhere for a week or 2 weeks based on them, and we figure out how to get them there.
And what's unique is you can decide where you want to go. So it can be anywhere from like a tropical island to Colorado, maybe even Singapore, right? Jeff is open to taking you anywhere, right?
Yes.
In order, and he's had pro athletes, different high level executives that do this with Jeff. So for all you LinkedIn people or Facebook, hey, if that's something you're interested, something that's different, you like the exclusiveness, reach out to Jeff. It's an amazing program. And
Thanks,
we
Kevin.
appreciate you being on our show tonight, Jeff. And it was really fun. And mental health is real. We all deal with it on a daily basis.
Oh boy.
Even as much as some of us might not want to admit we're a little cray-cray.
Right?
We all need an ear. We all need someone to listen and just talk it out with us. And that's part of why we have Bottoms Up Perspective as well. So we're always available. All the audience as well is a global audience, and everyone's truly positive. We're getting ready to launch a Bottoms Up Perspective website, and we got some unique things going on. We're going to have creators and different things that are going to be creating content. So we'll announce it soon, and we're excited about it. So thanks for joining us on the show tonight. And next week, we will continue reflecting. We don't know who our guest is yet. And then the following week, we have someone from VaynerMedia that'll be joining us. So we're excited to be here, and have a good night. Have a good rest of your day for those of you out east. Later.
Thank you guys for having
Thanks, Jeff.
me. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Jeff.
See ya.